What's up? My name is not important. People are all the time asking me, how did you make that beat 'em up? I made a beat 'em up, for those who don't know. It's not done yet, but I made it. I did it, okay? It's made. Um, it's a little ways off, but it's not the point. Here it is. Here's my beat 'em up. People are asking me, how do you do it? How did you make the systems work, right? Because it's something that I don't see a lot. It's a lot of tutorials for action platformers and vampire survivors alike, and roguelike, make a roguelike in under 8 minutes. But you don't see a lot of people with the tutorials on how to make beat 'em ups. There's a couple really good ones. Cobra Code, I love you, Cobra Code. Um, let's see. I very rarely see anybody do it the way I did it, which is shocking because I'm fairly certain that this is how they would have been doing the old ones in back in the day, you know? Um, so when we think about 3D games, this is a 2D game, right? It's 2D, 3D. Where is it? 2.5D? This is a 2D game. It's just like a top-down game, right? Except you move slower in these directions. You move this. Actually, no. I don't even think I did that. You can make it seem like there's an extra dimension by slowing down the movement, the vertical movement. So you can like make the character move at speed 100 left and right, and then speed 50 up and down. But I didn't even bother with that. Depends on the camera angle. It will look a little weirder if you like. It depends on what background you have. My background here, it's all fake. It's all a lie. This is literally just a 2D picture that I drew. It makes it look like it's 3D. The only reason you stop at this wall is because there's a big box that I drew around it. It's flat. It has nothing to do with 3 dimensions. This is 2 dimensions. It's just like Zelda, top-down Zelda. But, oh, how do you get them to stand in front of each other? Sprites are drawn over the top of each other already. So all you got to do is decide which sprite to draw over which other sprite. In Godot, we have what's called the z-index. Let's see. And to make sure, I very often will forget that the stuff down in this bottom right corner is not visible to people with my head in the way. Okay, there's this property on all 2D nodes, canvas items, I believe. Canvas item node, yeah, no, node 2D, yes, the node 2D property called z-index. So this is the thing that tells the viewport what to put in front of what else. So if I have val over here, her z-index is 0. If I put her above AK, she goes up. If I put her below AK, she goes down, because AK is z-index 0, right? Also 0. So Godot also has a node called ysort. In Godot 4, that's actually gotten merged into the regular node TD. I'm using Godot 3.5. I'm considering converting to 4, and I'm on the fence because I've tried a couple times, and one of my biggest struggles right now is that they really redid the animation system, and I am deep in the animation system. I am deep in the guts of the animation system, and I don't know if it's going to be worth it to, or if I will have to rewrite all that, and if I do have to rewrite all of it, I don't think it'll be worth it. So I might have to stay in 3.5, but that's okay. 3.5 is great. Anyway, that's one way to do it. You can use ysort. So this ysort node is a node 2D that automatically sets the z-index, basically, of all of the nodes inside it based on their y position being like x position, y position. I'm not doing that because if you use that, you have to have all of your nodes under one child of the same one node, and I don't have that. I have some of my nodes in a parallax layer, some of my game objects, and I have some of them in other places. Like I'm stacking these cactuses. The cactuses are part of the room, and the fighters are not part of that room. Their nodes are all over the place. I can't do that. So what I have is in my scripts, in the process method, ignore everything else and just have this. So in the physics process, you can loop through a list of whatever stuff you have that you want to organize, so that some of it's in front and some of it's behind. And what I'm doing is setting the Z index for every node 2D that is an object in the room. So in this case, the cactuses and the players, but in other levels I have, you know, rocks and walls and whatever, furniture. So you set it. There's a set Z index method in all node 2D nodes. The Z index takes a floating point number. So you can multiply it down to like a fractional number, because Z index only goes up to, it has a min and a max. Canvas item Z min 4096. But if you have a really, really big thing, like in my case, I'm doing Y position, maybe I have, like, maybe there's something at position 5,000. Like, that's very reasonable to assume. And that would be beyond the limit of the number of Z, or yeah, the Z index limit. So I'm multiplying it by 0.1. It'll greatly reduce the number of values I need to use. It'll keep them near each other. Like, if I have somebody way up here at negative 4,000 and way down here at positive 4,000, that will all be within 400 Z layers, I guess, if I have 0.1. And you could keep going here, but then floating point precision starts to get weird. So something like this. This keeps stuff organized in the front. But that's not quite as confusing as how the actual fighters' collisions were. So what we have here, what is a fighter? I have 2 kinematic bodies for each fighter. So if you use Godot and you use the kinematic body node, what is a kinematic body 2D? It is a physics object that is a greatly simplified version of a rigid body. So rigid body is a construct that's common to other physics engines that you can apply like all kinds of physics to, like linear velocity and rotational velocity and all this. Kinematic body is like a simple version of that that's optimized for video games. So you can do rigid bodies in Godot, but the kinematic body is pared down a lot because having a bunch of rigid bodies in your game slows everything down, because the physics server has to be calculating all of this other physics stuff that you generally don't need if you're just making a platformer where a guy runs around, right? So because that is the purpose of the node, they gave it this little guy icon, right? Which makes sense and it's intuitive, except when your guy has more than one kinematic body. Or when you want to make a projectile. Guess what is a great node to make a projectile out of? Kinematic body. Because it's a physics object that moves and it's simple. It just moves and collides and it doesn't really need to have anything else applied to it. It just needs to move and collide. So there's 2 kinematic bodies. There's one for the floor collision. That's this one. And there's one for the hitboxes, the body collision. Let me turn the shapes on. So this is the body. Well, I called the node body for the floor collision, but so I have one collision object down here called body. This is the shadow. So this is a what do we call it? Capsule? Is that what they call them? Capsules? Yeah. And this is what collides with walls. So I have all these walls, right? When you're actually playing the game, okay, so you see she has her shadow on, but that little blue capsule, that is the thing that collides with the walls. And nothing else. That's where my feet are. And it also collides with other objects, like this cactus that's going to hit me, so I can't. But I can't walk up into it because that also capsule-shaped thing on the bottom is the hitbox of the cactus. The red cactus shoots you into the air like a sonic spring. So all the fighters also, their floor collision is the thing that prevents them from walking past each other. And that is just one of the types of collision. So then the other type is the actual body, right? Like the fighters' physical bodies. That is handled via a second kinematic body. This is what has all of these green rectangles on it. Now I'm doing something a little more complicated. I'm managing the hitboxes with the physics server directly, so I don't have collision shapes, but you can. It used to be doing it like this. I would have shaped. Have one of these here, and then you'd add a rectangle to it. And then this would be the hitbox, right? And this would be where you punch, and then you'd have another one for punching. But we don't want this to collide with walls, right? So like it's a different type of collision. We don't want it to collide with the foot collision, any of that. So what we use is collision layers. This is a set of collision object 2D. Watch out for this. There's two different collision tabs. Any collision object 2D node has this set of properties, collision layer, and collision mask. So this tells each collision object what other objects it is allowed to collide with. So the floor, this belongs to the characters layer and the player collision layer. So it is both like, I don't know if I like that actually. I think I set these somewhere else. Because not all fighters are players, but I think if it's not, if it's a fighter that isn't being controlled by a player, I think I'd set this flag off in code. So anyway, so this is like defining what I am, right? I am a character collision. This is what it is able to collide with. I collide with the world. The world is what all the walls and stuff are. Other characters, doors. So when I walk up to a door and I want to go through it, the door knows to send me through the door because I walked on it. This foot thing touched the door area. Pickups. So when I walk past a health pickup with this, that's what's going to trigger that the pickup happens, and range. And we'll get into that in a minute because that's the other topic. And then the moves. This is the body that has the hitboxes on it, has different layers. It is this one is part of the hurtboxes layer. It is only, nothing is going to interact with this other than damage calculations, right? The hitboxes and hurtboxes. So it can only interact with hitboxes. It doesn't interact with other hurtboxes. This is not what I want. I want it to be like this. The only thing that matters is if you are getting hit there. So you'll also notice that's why the fighters' bodies don't collide with each other. Like they can just walk right past each other, right? If you made those green collide with each other, they would not be able to, I wouldn't be able to walk past AK because my head is colliding with her foot there, right? So that's important that these are separate like this. If you don't want those boxes to collide with each other, you got to have the mask not match. Then I have the hitboxes are yet another different collision object. So again, I'm doing this thing with the hitboxes where I'm interacting directly with the physics server, but it works the same way as using the nodes. So then each body, each of the fighters, like actual physical character sprite and hitboxes and hurtboxes, has an area 2D that handles all of the hitbox stuff. And it's the inverse of the hurtboxes. It belongs to the hitbox layer, and it can interact only with the hurtbox layer. And that is where all the damage and moves stuff happens. That's totally separated. The other thing is jumping. So if that's the case, how come I can jump, right? I can jump here, but I can't walk through the wall. I can't jump over the wall. The jump is faked as well. I'm technically just moving my sprite vertically the same way as if I walked up, right? Like, the sprite moves upwards. It's not different. The way that I trick you into thinking that I'm jumping and not just moving upwards, there's a couple of different ways. It depends on the logic of it is where is the character standing. So the position that the character is standing is handled by this top level kinematic body. This does not move. When you jump, only this second kinematic body moves. Look, so I have my states. My state machine is handled as a tool script, so it all happens in the editor. So when you move up, as soon as you leave the ground, it triggers the jump animation, no matter what you're doing. But my fighter object isn't moving from this spot. So this position is always the floor, where you are in Z space. It's faking, or whatever you want to call it. Like, so I guess this is Y space, right? We've faked the third axis coming out of the ground. That is this sub kinematic body's Y position. So I've split a single Y position into two different ranges of Y positions so that we can pretend that there is a third axis going on. Let's see. So that's all well and good, say, but it still doesn't explain everything. How do you avoid hitting when it seems like you shouldn't be able to hit? So like I'm down here, I shouldn't be able to hit AK, right? But look, my collision boxes are overlapping hers. And remember, there is no third axis. Technically, these are flat sprites just sitting in a plane. Like, under normal circumstances, these would be detected as hits. So you would be losing the immersion that you're actually in a 3D world. That is where these range boxes come in. Stop. Range box. So the long attack range is the important one. Close attack range is for AI. So I have to flip it. So basically, all it does is if the fighter is colliding with my range box, then the hit is allowed to happen. So I can only hit, with my moves, I can only attack fighters who are inside my big long rectangle there. And that fakes. So I think I need to extend it down more. Yeah. Because this still kind of looks like it should hit, and it isn't hitting. Yeah, you know what? Let's do a little live bug fix, live game dev. Shrink that down there. That looks better. Well, I don't know if it looks better, but it feels like it's going to play better. Restart. That should be enough. I don't know. We'll have to play with that, you know. So that is all it takes to fake like you're not actually colliding, and pretend that you're in 3 dimensions when you're totally just in 2 dimensions. Then of course the other way to make a beat 'em up is to create a whole 3D world and put 2D sprites on it and use an orthographic camera. Orthographic, I think. I'll show you what I mean. I didn't want to show this because I don't know if it's going to happen, but one weekend I put together a little fake volleyball minigame. And this demonstrates the other way that you can do a 2D beat 'em up. It's faking like it's 3D. This is actually 3D. I have an actual 3D model, but it is using a it's also a kinematic body 2D, but it has a billboard sprite on it. So I'm using the same sprite. Godot has a sprite 3D node. It's just a flat texture. And then this has a body, and you can set the camera. There's a way to make the camera be orthogonal in the real world. Oh, perspective orthogonal. There we go. Okay, so that looks more like what you would think of as... So it's got my 3D models in it. It looks kind of weird, but this is actually a 3D world projected flat. This has benefits and some drawbacks. The collisions get a lot harder to manage. Like, you have to have 3D models, right? They're not models, but you have to have collisions, shapes, 3D. It's weird. It's a lot to think about. I don't like it. A benefit though is that you can have terrain on the ground, right? Like, so with my method, there's no going upstairs. There's no jumping on a box. This is just one flat ground. I could probably figure out a way to fake like there's multiple like platforms, but I'm not going to worry about it. That's not what the game's about. I don't think it's important. River City Ransom has something like that. It's faked, like fake levels, platforms. In the first game, it sucks. It's awful. However they coded it, they should have left it out. It got better, you know. Like in River City Girls, it's good. It adds nice dimension to the levels, but they were faking it their very best, and it just kind of made the game harder to play. I appreciate their effort, and they worked wonders with the NES hardware, but should have left it out. Anyway. So now that I've spoiled y'all on this, and will probably disappoint you when it doesn't make it into the final game, let me just see something. I forget how this works. See if it still works. I haven't messed with this in a long time. Is it A? Oh, yeah. Summertime. Fish are jumping. Ah. Come on, man. Dead or Alive Extreme Beach, or Hot Worlds Extreme Beach Volleyball 3. On September 2027. Maybe. Maybe not. No promises. Does that answer your questions? Good. Bye.